What is your reaction now that the verdict is in? Guilty for Herbert Simpson. Your reaction?
Well, we're certainly pleased with the verdict. The jury made the right decision. They based their verdict on the evidence, and so we're happy with the verdict. The jury made the right call.
Do you think there was a singular, piece of evidence throughout the trial or a testimony that really led to the jury's decision in this matter?
Well, I think they based it on the entirety of the evidence, but the DNA evidence that we had in the case, I think, was particularly helpful to the jury's decision, and the X-ray of his hand with the bullet still in his hand, I think, was also pretty helpful.
I would say that this is probably one of the quicker trials I've probably seen, the jury deliberations in my time. I've only been here for a few months, but I mean, 2 hours roughly. I mean, what does that say about your guys' case possibly?
We've had juries out in 5 minutes. We've had them deliberate 6 hours. We try not to read the tea leaves into how long the jury spends deliberating. Obviously, this is a big case. It's an important case, and they took their time. But I think the strength of the evidence that was gathered by the Tyler Police Department, specifically Detective Corey Chamberlain and Sergeant James Freeman, they did a fantastic job investigating this case and bringing us, and ultimately the jury, all the evidence that they needed to convict.
How important was the testimony of Rogers' children in this case?
So I think Destiny Rogers, she testified. That's Warren's daughter. I think she did a great job testifying. She was very cooperative with the investigation. She loved her father and wanted to do everything that she could to make sure that his killers were found and brought to justice.
What was the biggest challenge in prosecuting this case for you?
The biggest challenge is just the length of time it takes to bring a case to trial, especially a murder case. We're dealing with a lot of DNA evidence, and that takes quite a bit of time. And our experts are all from Garland in this case specifically, and I think that should get a little bit better. The Tyler DPS Crime Lab is actually working on their DNA section as well, so that I think will help hopefully shorten the amount of time it takes for us to get those DNA results back and get justice for families sooner.
And you mentioned, getting justice for families sooner. Even though for Herbert Simpson, that case is over, the family has still lost a loved one.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I guess the question is, is it truly over for them?
No, it's not. And anytime we have a successful trial, it's always somewhat bittersweet. Obviously, someone lost their life, and he had people that cared about him. He had family that cared about him. He was a veteran, and the jury heard evidence that he was struggling with some things, with some drug addiction. But that doesn't mean that his life was worthless and that he didn't matter. And the police department and the DA's office, we take every victim as they come, and we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get justice if they're the victim of a crime.
And that's what we were talking about earlier. I mean, Simpson's case is over, but there's still further defendants to kind of take the trial at this point, right? Can you touch on that a little bit? Not so much details, but...
Yeah, I can't comment on the specifics of the co-defendants' cases, but there's Stephanie Brasher and Anthony Taylor. They're also charged as co-defendants in this case, and those cases will be resolved at some point, and they'll be resolved at some point.
Yeah. I just want to ask a clarifying question. So when the jury came to its verdict, did they need to prove the robbery and the murder? Or was it just the capital murder they were focused on?
Yeah, so the options that the jury had were convicting Herbert Simpson of capital murder, which involved murder plus the aggravating element of robbery. And they also had the option to convict him of the lesser included offense of first-degree felony murder, or obviously to find Herbert Simpson not guilty. And so in order to convict him of capital murder, which is what they found him guilty of, they had to find that the murder was committed in the course of committing a robbery of Warren Rogers.
So today it was confirmed by the jury that a robbery occurred.
That's correct.
And it was touched on by you in the closing arguments. They saw an opportunity. They took advantage of his addiction essentially, and the family member spoke to this as well. Could you kind of, I guess, elaborate on that more? That it was kind of a crime of convenience, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, I think we proved a financial motive for Herbert Simpson to commit a robbery against Warren Rogers, and I think that they felt like he would be an easy target. I think the evidence also showed that he wasn't necessarily an easy target, and that the evidence showed that he fought back. But I think that played into Herbert Simpson's decision to try to rob Warren Rogers for sure.
Yeah, and I found it interesting too, like while the daughter was, Destiny was testifying, that she was kind of, I guess, innovative and took on the case herself a little bit and like found these Cash App statements, and that further, in addition to the DNA, connected the case together. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like her kind of that ingenuity.
Yeah, no, she did great. The detectives had issued search warrants for those records, and every time you issue a search warrant for records from, like a social media company, for instance, or like a Cash App, it can take quite a bit of time to get the return on those subpoenas, and she was able to sort of sign into her father's accounts and get into those and provide those statements to law enforcement, and that really helped because obviously it showed that Warren Rogers had sent $31 to Herbert Simpson on the day of the murder. So she did a great job, and I really want to thank the family, particularly Destiny Rogers and her brother DeMonte and their mother Maggie. They had to wait quite a long time for justice, and they weren't sure if they were going to get it. And they've been great throughout this process, which is, as you might imagine, a very difficult one.
And is there anyone else that I guess you want to like thank, or I mean, you mentioned the family and the detectives as well. Is there anything else to add or say to those who helped make this happen?
Yeah, I mean, I have a great staff up here. The final product that you see in the courtroom is months and over a year in the making, and can't do any of this without the help of certainly my second chair, Casey Sirianni, and my third chair, Promise Trujillo, as well as my investigator, Christopher Baggett, and my legal assistant, Marilu Martinez. We can't get justice in any of these cases without working together as a team. And our boss, the district attorney, Jacob Putman, he gives us all the resources we need to go out and get these trials tried and get justice on these cases.